Welcome back, everyone, to the Council for Maintenance podcast. If this is your first time joining us, we are a show that takes a behind-the-scenes look into the gritty, non-glamorous life of aircraft maintenance. We share some laughs, impart some wisdom, all in hopes to give you that split seconds relief in your day that helps prevent mishaps. I am Six.
I'm MVP.
And our third man, Shoreline, is silently in the back, twisting knobs, making sure that our voices stay fit for radio.
Faces stay fit for radio.
Faces stay
fit
for
I guess voices too.
Yeah, voices too. I mean, we've had our glitches from time to time, but so far we've been pretty lucky. Knock on wood on that one.
Yeah, so far I still hate the sound of my own voice.
Same here, man. It's been going on 3 years and I still find it really awkward to hear myself.
I was listening just the other day. Kool-Aid recorded my voice so she could send it to her family in Mexico. And she was playing it back to herself, and I heard my voice, and I just kind of, ugh.
Same here.
Gross.
Like, ugh, God damn it. Which is even more funny because we've had guests that are like, oh my God, like I sound so weird, like I'm far away or I'm in the elevator. Like, that's how I feel every single time. Just so all of you know, if you've been a guest, that's how we feel every single time. Even with fancy audio and some post-production magic, it still feels weird to me.
Yeah, the person we should all feel bad for is Shoreline, because he's the one who's got to listen to us week in and week
on a constant basis. Like, oh my God, make it stop.
I bet he just sits there and shoves pencils into his eyes while he's making the audio better. Has a revolver with one bullet, and he just spins the barrel and puts it to his head. Click. Nope, not today.
Damn it. Love you, Shoreline. Thanks as always. So for today, this was a request long overdue given by the people at Dalcom Tech. And this one is concerning the Dunning-Kruger Effect. So for the unfamiliar, the Dunning-Kruger Effect is a cognitive bias in which people wrongfully overestimate their knowledge or ability in a specific area. And this tends to occur because of a lack of self-awareness and prevents them from accurately assessing their own skill.
Essentially, they're king nothing.
Yes.
Very confident in themselves, but when the rubber hits the road, oftentimes you'll find these people can't perform. But by God, can they tell you how good they can perform?
Yes. And another way of understanding this is like, say, like you took some classes on Duolingo for, I don't know, Latin. let's pick a hard language like Latin. You listen to a couple of words. You understand a couple of vocabulary words. You got a cool little badge from the robot owl thing. And you're like, all right, cool, I understand Latin. And in that little time that you've got those badges or you got that award from the robot freaking owl, you feel like you can go and speak Latin or go translate Latin. And you feel that you can because you've reached that point. But your skill level is like well below like the minimum or well below what would be considered a mastery. But you are not self-aware enough to know that, and so you overconfidently gloat about your abilities.
It's like you did really well on your Latin test, and now you're, in your own mind, you're a proficient Latin speaker, but to anybody who's a proficient Latin speaker, you sound like you're 3 years old.
Yes.
But in your mind, you are, you're Julius Caesar.
Yes. And this is kind of along the lines of a curve, right? Picture, like we all hear like the learning curve. This one's kind of like a rise, dip, and rise again. So like when you take something brand new, for example, you start learning it, you feel great about just like, oh my God, I freaking understand so much more now. You get that little bit of a high because you're learning stuff and you're actively engaging with it. And you kind of sort of get overconfident in your ability to explain stuff or really understand it. And then as you progress in your knowledge base in it, you start kind of dipping down and start feeling a little bit depressed because you feel like I know so much, but you don't know enough, right? I think we've all kind of been there where as the information kind of piles up, you realize that in your lack thereof to fully grasp stuff. And I think I kind of suffer from that on a daily basis, to be honest. And then as you progress more into the actual knowledge, like you actually know a lot of stuff or you're mastering stuff, it turns into like, I'm pretty good, but I know my limitations, right? So you kind of start getting that ingrained humility, so to say, right? Like wisdom gives you humility. It's like, you know a whole bunch of stuff, but you know like how limited you are in your actual abilities. So you tend not to say as much.
Right. You, like you said, the humble aspect, you're confident in your abilities, but you also are very aware that somebody out there knows more than you. So you tend not to show your weakness by just blurting out everything all at one time.
Right. Another good example, right? Let's apply this to, say, aircraft mechanics or aircraft students. You have a bunch of mechanics, students, or employees, and they're having a performance review done. But you feel so overconfident in your ability, even though you don't realize that you're dumb, if that makes any sort of sense. And you're not open to constructive criticism. So when, like, say, your boss gives you a performance review, you don't see it as constructive criticism. You just kind of see it as the employer doesn't like you, or they have something against you, or they're just kind of projecting their faults onto you, kind of thing, if that makes any sort of sense. Like, we've all been there. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've always felt some of my bosses didn't understand shit, but and sometimes they really don't. And but a good chunk of that is just because, like, you are overconfident in your ability to grasp certain things that you don't realize that maybe they're just seeing things from a higher level than you are, or a higher state of awareness than you are. So when they actually try to give that to you, it just feels like it's out of your bubble. You just don't catch it because you've already felt that you've mastered it all. Well, yeah,
that's exactly right. So you become the fool in that situation, or, you're unwilling to learn at that point. And because you, in your mind, think you know everything, you've now just closed off or switched off your ability to learn anything different. So in your example 6 was when you're getting your annual review and your boss says, hey, here's some constructive criticism. You immediately go on the defense because you can't be wrong. Nobody can know more than you. You know the most. So you go into the defensive mode. Everybody sucks except for me, and here's why. And you fail to you read to respond. And not for what's actually being said. And I experienced something like this back at the beginning of the year over this very subject was feedback. Right? Employee feedback. And I witnessed a situation where people were very open and honest about this one individual. And this individual did nothing to understand what was being said and why it was being said. And instead, it was right to excuses. Well, I'm this way because X, Y, Z, and you have to accept me for it. That's literally the conversation that came, the result of that situation, right? So that individual in that instance was very much suffering from this Dunning-Kruger effect. Was not willing to learn why the things that were being said and how they should fix themselves. Instead, it was everybody else needs to fix themselves to adjust to me. You know what I'm saying? Like it's, and it was heartbreaking to watch and witness. But, and unfortunately, right, here's one of those situations where you say, oh, well, karma came back and got him, right? No, in fact, that didn't happen. In fact, nothing came of that. And that individual ended up getting promoted. So
my God.
That's one of the instances we say, but the good guys won in the end. Well, not all fairy tales come true.
Sadly, if there's any living proof of that, looks itself in the mirror. Looks itself in the mirror. God damn it!
Wife's mascara streaks. Wait, Wait, MVP, did you just say mascara? Are you wearing mascara? No.
No,
I'm not.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Right?
What's on your face? It's dirt and oil. I'm a real boy.
I'm a big boy.
Who's a big boy? I'm a big boy.
So this Dunning-Kruger effect, it doesn't just apply just to us. It's found in almost every domain imaginable. Like if there's a chance that someone might have some kind of overestimation of their ability, it's gonna be there, right? And this can range anywhere from just regular logical reasoning to emotional intelligence, financial knowledge, product knowledge, theory of operations. Hell, even firearm safety. Oh my god! Or firearm safety and driving ability. Oh my god, with driving ability, how many times has anyone heard where like they feel people outside of a certain state just can't drive for worth of shit, you know, or a certain country for that matter. Pretty much everybody, right? And this effect is not only with people who are just flat out incompetent, right? And I say that in the most sincere way possible. It's also for people who actually know stuff, but they kind of lack in certain areas and they're just totally unaware of it. Like, we're all kind of guilty of that at some point. Like, we feel like we've got a good firm grasp of certain things, but we're just not open to outside viewpoints or that don't fall within our scope of awareness. And we just automatically write them off as like, okay, you're freaking stupid. Or you just don't know. You're incompetent. You need to do your own research and stuff like that. I feel each and every one of us are pretty guilty of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you brought up a good point. I think most of us, I think we all have experienced Dunning-Kruger effect in ourselves, right? And those of you right now saying, I've never done that, are suffering from it right now.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Active learning. But that's the case. We've all experienced at some point, and we've all gone. And I know for myself, I've gone. What kind of an asinine response was that? Why don't you give me some vital feedback, clown? And the truth is they might have been given genuine feedback, but for some reason that individual, maybe we don't respect that individual as much. So anything that they say, it could even be what's the best pizza in town, and they could say what the best pizza in town is, and you would argue it just because it's that person. That probably ties in with some other experiences you've had or run-ins with them, right? Or maybe that person is the most severe with the Dunning-Kruger effect, and so anything that they say is immediately written off, even when they try to be genuine at some point.
Yeah.
I know for me, that's a big one.
Yeah. I mean, you've probably made a very good point. Like with the projection of confidence is kind of like, what makes things right. I guess that's the best way to put it. Like, say like you're in a room full of people and then they're giving a presentation of something. People will gravitate to the one that just sounds like they know what the hell they're talking about, even though they know absolutely fucking nothing about it. It's because like, oh, he's very fast with their answers, or he or she's very confident in how they say things. It could just be faking the funk, like that whole fake it till you make it thing. We see this a bunch of times with interviews too. Like what color's the sky? Red. Fuck yeah, it's red. It's so red. Yeah. I'm like, oh, damn. All right. I guess the sky is red, right? And people start believing in this sort of stuff, right? And that's where the dangers of it kind of come from, like where you believe a person because of their the way they project their confidence, but it can be completely off base, right? And they themselves may not even know about it, right? But they're so driven by their desire for status or for being right that they don't take the time to actually be right, if that makes any sort of sense. I'm sure there's like so many different scenarios where we can illustrate that. Example is like say we're in meetings, it's always the loudest person that gets to the most attention, or the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of saying.
Yeah, my God, how many times have we all seen that happen?
Yeah,
in our careers, right? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And as much as we don't want that to happen, well, as much as we want it to happen because we want change, why does it always take the squeaky wheel for things to change, right? Why can't things? All right, let's use an example here, and I don't know if I'm sidetracking this conversation, but you say, well, so and so over there, I want to be the next level mechanic. Well, you've only been here 2 years. Why you don't warrant that level? I don't care. I feel my skill set's there and should be doing it. And I want this and I want that, and I'm going to quit if you don't give me what I want. Okay, here you go. But meanwhile, there's some people who have actually been around the required amount of time who have more skills, but they're always head down working, which is why their skill set's better than the squeaky wheel person.
Mm-hmm.
But the squeaky wheel's in everybody's face, so they give them what they want to shut them up. I wish it didn't have to come to that. I wish that people making those decisions would go, yeah, get wrecked, or I'm going to find another job. Bye, Felicia. You know,
Yes.
There's the door. Don't let it hit you on the way out. And then, out of spite, promote the person worthwhile just to add insult to injury.
Yep. You know what else I also see as a danger, man, with this, with the overconfidence stuff, is that said person who has that overconfidence, or they feel like they're just outpacing everybody else, is they tend to make unnecessary risks, right? Or over the top risks. Like, say, for instance, driving unsafely. Oh, that would never happen to me. I'm too good of a driver. Or this would never happen to me. I'm too good of a mechanic, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, fill the gaps of what you feel that is. But those kind of instances, and we see it happen time and time again, like, oh, it's fine, I'll never get caught. Or, you know, oh, it's fine, it's not going to be a problem. And it's always that chance or that risk that they didn't factor in that always turns out to be the one that breaks the horse's back, if everyone catches my drift on this, right? And this can also lean towards the line of just egocentric narcissism, if that's a pretty good connection. The opposite of all this is what we've been talking about in previous episodes, which is imposter syndrome, right? You're good at what you do, but you don't feel it's good enough, right? Or you don't feel like that you've hit the bar to be considered good. Like, that'd be the opposite of this Dunning-Kruger effect, is that imposter syndrome. And we ourselves, we suffer that from quite a bit, calling ourselves out on that one. Especially sure. Like we're in a work environment where we're trucking along, we're doing what we do, and we just feel like that's just normal. We're just doing our job, we're just doing as we're told, or doing as we feel to make things successful. And the reward, or quote reward, is just doing a good job, right? So like when they say, oh, so-and-so gets employee of the year, I'm like, are you sure? Right? It kind of doesn't feel warranted. Like, you didn't hit that employee of the year award. It's usually like someone who reinvents the space shuttle or some shit. And it's that kind of goes into that dip of depression where, like, you know enough, but you don't feel it's good enough, or you feel like your self-awareness is kind of pushing you downwards, that you realize your abilities are good, but you don't think it's good enough to put you on par with, say, someone who's at a mastery level of whatever that skill or occupation is. So there's give and take with a lot of this. And
what's also interesting with this Dunning-Kruger effect syndrome is that those with the overconfidence in themselves are very good at making sure at putting down those with the confidence, but don't vocalize it.
Yes.
So what am I trying to say here is that you're fairly confident in this particular subject. Let's say engine changes. You've done 150 of them on this one particular airframe. You kind of have everything memorized. You still follow your tech data, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you're confident in your abilities. You've done it a whole bunch of times. But the Dunning-Kruger person will find a way to make you question your own knowledge on it, while also blowing up their ego, you said, or enhancing their own confidence in themselves without actually doing any work. By putting you down. So they build themselves up by putting you down, I think, is a caveat to this as well.
Yeah. Or what's it called? They become the single point of failure, right? As we've mentioned in previous episodes, like they have to be the one to push the button, or they have to be the one to make that call. And I can understand how this can be a good thing in certain reasons, but for a majority of instances, like having one person being the one end all be all, and they, for whatever reason or another, are not available to make that happen, then everything just goes to absolute shit, right? Like there's a reason why a lot of stuff have fail safes or redundancies, is because in the event something doesn't work or is unavailable for whatever reason, there's still a means to keep things moving forward or not have things fail catastrophically. But
well, or weirdly enough, right? They have to be the single point of failure, as you said. Press the button. However, there could be several others of the imposter syndrome going, "Hey, I don't recommend we do that, and here's some supporting evidence."
mm-hmm.
But button pusher 5000 is going to say, "I'm right, you're wrong." Full send, and they smash the button. And then when everything starts exploding before it even gets to orbit, you turn around and go, "I told you," and they're nowhere to be found.
Yes.
Weirdly enough, they had vacations scheduled all of a sudden.
Yep. Or they start blaming all the sub steps that led up to them. Like, well,
Yeah.
if you would have told me this earlier, I would have not pushed the button. Like, but I did, or you didn't give me a chance to, right? How many times have we heard or seen that, right? Or they feel so very confident in their ability to make air quotes strategic decisions or make strategic moves, and they fail to realize all the little steps that led up to it, and they just go ahead and make that decision anyway. You guys can fill the gaps in of what other instances exactly like that fit the bill. But at least for us with the maintenance side or the aviation side, there's plenty of that goes around where you have an individual or individuals who feel like they have to be the end all be all, and they would stonewall any other fact that talks to the contrary. It's sad to say, but that's the wavelength a lot of individuals like that tend to ride on, where like, I am right.
Yeah. Yeah, you go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just saying, like, I am right, and there's nothing but my right. And if it's not my right, it's not the way to go. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah, and I think that people who, we'll call them the final 5%ers, they show up when the last 5 minutes of the work's done, and they tighten one bolt, and they're the first one running to the office. Got the job done. We took care of it, blah, 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 blah. Like, you didn't do shit the entire day except for this, and now you want to go and claim credit. Cool, homie. Since you hit the computer already, go ahead and take care of the paperwork. Oh, well, actually, I gotta leave early today, guys. I got an appointment thing going on. Got to see a man about a horse. All whatever the excuses. So you still end up doing the work in the end, but their name was broadcasted out first.
Yes.
Yes. And at some point, you hope that we like to think again that it'll catch up to them. But there's enough of us out there that won't let it fail. And by it, I mean, our maintenance, our flight schedules or whatever. So there's always those in the background who will keep those people afloat. And just like my example earlier, in some instances, the ne'er-do-well benefits out of the situation.
Yeah.
Which is just a kick in the nads.
Yes, very much. And so, like, is this like pretty much another way of calling narcissism? In a way, yes. But narcissism is kind of, forgive me for all the psychology people out there. Narcissism, I believe, is like where you just feel like you're the only thing that's right, period. Or you're the only thing that's perfect, period. And then the Dunning-Kruger effect is pretty much like, you're not perfect, but you have this inkling that you're slightly better than everybody else, right? Or you're just not aware that you're doing it wrong. And that happens, right? Like sometimes like, well, no one's told me no, or no one's told me I was doing it wrong. So you just kept trucking along until finally somebody points it out to you. And then now you're just in disbelief because you've been doing it a certain way for so long. Why is it taking it that long to tell you that it's wrong? And we've seen this instances plenty of times. And that's the common excuse we hear. Like, well, this is how we've always done it. well, I don't know what to tell you, friend. This is how we've always done it. It has always been wrong.
Right. You and I have used that for years now. Well, it's because we've done this for 20 years. So you've been wrong for 20 years. Well done.
Good for you. Yeah. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy that you could push the rope uphill that long. Right. But obviously we found the end of the rope.
Right. And also I think it's, it kind of does with the learning curve or the adjustment of it all. Right. For someone who's narcissistic, they're just like blatantly, there's no other way but mine. Versus like, say, someone with the Dunning-Kruger effect, they might be open to a suggestion if you can point it out to them logically that this is how it is, right? I'm sure there's going to be some abrasion to this, but in the end, if it's actually proven true, then they might be a little bit more receptive, right? Versus just saying, I am right because I said so. Like, well, that's not going to sway anybody for any reason whatsoever other than you hold my paycheck and I have to do as you say, which that's really not proving them wrong. They're just like, well, you have an ultimatum against me and I'm just going to move along until you go away. So,
yeah. And this kind of ties in with how do we counter or overcome the Dunning-Kruger effect. So if you don't mind, there's five steps here. It's pretty quick. Mm-hmm. But the first one is take time to reflect. Some people feel more confident when they make decisions quickly. The snap decisions can lead to errors of judgment. Number 2, seeing learning as a way forward.
Ooh.
3, challenge your own beliefs. So this takes some internal reflecting too, which is hard for people who suffer from the old Dunning-Kruger effect.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, change your reasoning. And 5, learn from feedback, which we've talked about the feedback aspect already. If you're reading to respond and not for what's being said, you're already failing.
Yes.
At overcoming this. And then changing your reasoning, that's what jogged my my thoughts to this, was when Six said, change your approach, right? Hey, mm-hmm. here's my reason why we're doing it this way. Well, I don't agree, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me word this a different way,
mm-hmm.
and approach it from a different perspective. We all learn in different ways. And so sometimes you have to explain things 5 or 6 times for it to reach the majority of the people.
Right. And I'm guilty of that too. Cause sometimes like when you give it to me on a PowerPoint or you write it down for me, it may not make as much sense if you just like show it. Right. Or you can have something written down and it can be interpreted 5 different ways versus like, do not stick your fingers in the gears. Oh, got it. Perfect. You know what I mean? Or if you do this, this happens. Oh, well, okay, then. Guess I'm not doing that.
Yeah, the aileron's binding while it's going through its range of motion. There's a it's binding a little bit. You can hear something negative happening, and you put that in a PowerPoint. Well, how do you know it's binding? How do you this and that? Okay, why don't we just walk out to the shop floor real quick, and I'll show you. Crunch, 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 crunch. Squeal, squeal, grab, grab, smash. Oh, I see. It was actually binding up. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I would make that up just to put it on a PowerPoint to present to you, but here we are.
Here we all are, right? So a good way to eliminate all this, as MVP has stated with those 5 facts, is the self-awareness piece is a big thing, right? Like understanding your faults and understanding your blind spots of where you're missing gaps, and understand there might be gaps, right? Just be open to that, because even though you have a good, firm grasp on a subject, an idea, or a skill, it doesn't mean that's the end all be all. There's a reason why like a lot of stuff like it goes through the steps it does is to eliminate that chance that there might be gaps, right? That kind of goes into the risk-based analysis that we talked about in all sorts of previous episodes. That, yeah, the likelihood is low, but it's never 0, right. Or the consequence is high, but the likelihood is next to never. So do we really need to spend all sorts of time and money on this? Maybe not, right? Like, again, with like the self-questioning, the self-reflection, open to feedback is definitely a big one, right? And just know that a lot of people who suffer from this are not just people who are just blatantly mentally incompetent. Those ones, that's kind of easy to spot. If a person just absolutely doesn't know, or they're mentally incapable for some kind of disability or another, got it. But a good majority of us who do suffer from this are actually pretty competent or pretty knowledgeable and pretty logical. But it's those gaps that we have or those biases, again, a big one, biases that we have that kind of blind us or give us this false positive to a lot of things. An example is us, right? I'll call myself on it. Like, I feel like I've been doing a job for X amount of years. I think I'm a pretty good expert. And then someone comes along and just turns my world upside down. Like, oh shit, I did not know that was the way, or I didn't know there was another way. Martial artists too actually have examples of, or good examples of this is once they hit like a certain belt level, they actively tell them to go seek other disciplines to figure out like, hey, maybe your kung fu isn't so strong as you think it is. Maybe like there's some other martial art or other form out there that can totally just one up you in one fell swoop. So maybe you ought to learn from them to figure out where you can address your gaps. And that's how majority of them get up to the upper belt levels, or if they even do have belts.
Right.
So,
oh, your kicks are very good in Taekwondo. You should go try out Thai kickboxing, Muay Thai kickboxing. And then you get your world rocked by a 4-foot Thai guy who shattered your femur in one kick. And you were like, huh, I was the best at my place of practice and training. But over here, I broke my leg.
Yeah.
Well, I learned the hard way on that one.
Yep. Or there's always there's always going to be something that's going to be ready and waiting to punch your ticket, right? So the idea is to like understand those gaps and just know that you don't know everything, but you try your best to kind of address whatever gaps there is, right? So that's kind of like the key takeaway from understanding yourself, right? What's the saying is that be good at knowing that what you don't know, right? I think that's a hallmark phrase for any risk-based decisions. Like, be good at knowing what could possibly happen, or how can we
expect the unexpected.
Yes, that's it. Jesus, man, that's way better than what I was thinking. It's vital that we're aware that there is always more, right? And there's always going to be this potential for something else to happen, and that's more or less like in a nutshell, like how we can counter all this, aside from or in summary of the 5 steps that MVP has mentioned. So, I mean, take that with some humility. That's kind of like the thing, right? I always it's okay to be confident. It's kind of okay to be overconfident in some ways, right? Especially depending on what your situation, like if you're in a sport or a high stakes environment, sometimes you don't have the ability or the economy to just overwhelm what you're trying to do or accomplish what you're trying to do. So you try to bluff it out in some way, shape, or form. But there are times when that doesn't work, and you got to understand that there are gaps. So might have some way to address that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and it might be a coping mechanism, right? Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
It could be a coping mechanism, right? You're a new person to a shop, and everybody's sitting around the break room talking about, I did this job over here, and I did that job over there, and oh my gosh, remember that one time we were over there? And so to fit in or blend in with the group, you kind of embellish your experiences a little bit, and just to fit in, right? You're the new kid in school in some instances. So not everything, it's kind of maybe sounded a little bit malicious or maladette with this Dunning-Kruger effect, as we've been talking, but I don't think all of it's malicious. It's or ill intent. Some of it might just, like I said, just trying to fit in with the group, have some commonality in there with someone else, just to kind of bridge that gap and create that bond, so to speak.
Right.
Like I said, it could just be a way for an individual to, feel better about themselves. And oftentimes it turns into, like we said, putting down somebody else, but it's really it shows their own lack of confidence within their own abilities by overestimating. Is that the right word? Overestimating their own. Yep. I don't think estimate is the right word, but overstating their own ability.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And yeah, that's a good point you brought up. Sometimes, like being the new kid in the shop or being in a new environment, you kind of want to feel it out and orient yourself to stuff. And sometimes you get these monikers where you got to make a big showing, right? You got to show what you can do right off the bat, hit the ground running, and all those different sayings. So you're not just kind of like snail walking the whole thing, right? Or people are kind of get a little shady around you, so to speak, or they feel you're sketchy, something like that. We've been there at some way, shape, or form, and we sometimes some people go a little overboard with their stories, with the confidence and so far, as MVP said. And again, it may not be malicious. Maybe they're just trying to make a big showing, like, "Hey, I'm useful. I can do stuff. I got cool stories too."
That's actually a cool point. Yeah. Hey, look, you guys are all talking this, but I too can help you, right? And it's kind of a way to show out and say, maybe the next time they're assigning jobs, you can go, "Well, hey, Six said he's done, he's changed out a nose strap before, so put him on there." And at that point, then if they did assign Six that job, they would find out very quick whether he has actually done that job before or not. Yes, we read our maintenance manual, but anybody with experience can make that job, depending on the aircraft, obviously. Let's just say can get it done in 2 hours. But if we're sitting there 3 days into the job, they might start questioning Six as to why it's taking so long.
Right. And a good counter for this, right, is like, "Hey, I've never done this job before. I really want to learn." Right. That's not saying like just turn down a new opportunity. It's like, just admit like, "Hey, I can do it because I know how to read, or I know how to follow instructions, but it may take a while because I've only done this so long," right? Or X amount of times, versus like someone who does this in their sleep pretty much. So nuances on that one. Again, just like think before jumping to any conclusions, accept criticism, and question yourself, right? Like, is this something that I really know, or I'm kind of sketchy on? Do I need some help? This turns into the mentoring piece, which we talked about previously. All sorts of ways can jump from this, but a good starting point is knowing where you stand, right? And sometimes, you do kind of have to throw your weight around a little bit to get people to notice. But don't throw it in such a way where like, "Oh, okay, so this person can do our entire corporate budget. Fantastic. Let's roll with this guy." And you have no fucking clue what's going on. Or like, "Oh, you claimed that you used to be a Navy SEAL, which you did nothing remotely of the sort." And then they start having you plan like all these strategic events and all these tactical planning and shit. Like, I have no fucking clue what any of this shit is. Right. But now you're already in it to win it. So you have to fake the funk the whole way.
Yeah. So I'm reading some other stuff here, and it says, accepting criticism and then seeking feedback from others. And I think the seeking feedback from others is a great point. So let's say Shoreline tells Six that if he does, he sucks at podcasting because X, Y, Z reason. And Six might go, "Well, the hell with you, Shoreline. I think I'm pretty good at this. I've gotten positive results and blah, blah, blah." Well, why would he say that to me, though? I don't know. Let me go ask MVP. MVP, hey, Shoreline said I suck at this. Is there a reason why? Well, I wouldn't say you suck, but you could improve on whatever areas, right? Just throwing out examples there. Mm-hmm. And I think that seeking feedback from others is right, because you're getting, okay, you got the opinion of one person, Shoreline. Okay, well, that's Shoreline's opinion. Let me ask MVP what his is. Let me ask Fresh what his is. Let me ask Stig what his is. And if all of us say you suck, then there might be some validity to it. But if only Shoreline was the one who's saying you suck, then you could probably write that off as him just being a jag, for the day or whatever.
Right. Or he's having a bad day himself. And like,
right. He's having a bad day himself and taking it out on you. And okay.
All right. I got it. You need your 20 minutes of alone time. Got it. I got it. Yeah. Because we've all been there too, right? Sometimes you're just exhausted. You're burned out. You don't have the time to like engage some interpersonal skills. And so you just say the first thing that writes them off, and it may or may not be the thing that they wanted to hear or you wanted to say, but just came out that way.
Yep.
Right. And we've all done that, man. I've been guilty of that plenty of times. And sometimes it's usually when the person meets me for the first time, like, yeah, sure, whatever. Here, take your keys and go. Like, what? And they just to get the wrong impression, like, wow, this dude's a total dick. I'm like, no, I'm actually not. And you just caught me at a bad time. I'm sorry. That kind of goes into the first impression thing. But yeah, that's a very good point. What MVP was talking about. And just because it's just one person's opinion doesn't mean it's all encompassing. I mean, it may be hurtful depending on who the person is, but one person's take is not going to be the end all be all, right? For whatever.
Right. Or go back to that individual and say, oh, I suck. Okay. All right. Well, how do you think I can get better?
Yes.
Right. Put the ball back in their court. Okay. Well, you're saying that I sucked and that you must obviously be pretty good. So what do you think I should do to get better? Oh, well, I just think you should suck less. Yeah, that's not constructive criticism. It's not positive feedback. I can't suck less if I don't know what I suck on or how I should improve upon it. You know what I mean?
But you're exactly right. I get what you're saying, and that's exactly right. And we've talked about this again before in previous episodes about feedback and mentoring. If they can't tell you where you're lacking, is that even a valid opinion, right? And take it or leave it what you guys feel about opinions, but some professional opinions or constructive opinions have some weight, right? Especially like say if this person's your boss or someone that's a high stakes customer for whatever reason. The customer says you suck, you just suck, period. And that just means less work for everybody, even though you technically don't suck. Or like a 1-star Yelp review. It may not be all encompassing, but that did hurt. So,
right. But you also have to understand what they're saying.
Yes.
Right. Like again, okay. What are they saying? Well, I got a 1-star review at this restaurant. What did that 1-star review say? They gave me chopsticks to eat my sushi with, and I wanted a fork. Well, okay, you can probably just write that one off as being just an ignorant person because it did say authentic, sushi, authentic Japanese dining experience or something, right? So you're going to be eating with chopsticks. It's not the restaurant's fault that you don't know how to eat with chopsticks. So you can write that one off. But if they come through and say, hey, I noticed there was some mold building in the bathrooms. I noticed employees weren't washing hands. I noticed employees stealing money from the register or whatever else. All right, those are some serious issues that need fixed. But again, that's why you have to really look into what's being said. Read to understand, not to react.
Yep, very true. Exactly true. I was about to throw out the parts like, oh, how about giving 1-star reviews because a certain show cusses too much, even though there's a totally big red sign that says explicit content.
That's digging way back there. But yeah, that's
way back.
They sound unprofessional. I really question their abilities if this is how they're talking. Have you ever worked in an aviation maintenance shop? Because your response tells me that you have not.
Or you've been so far removed, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. the big red E should have been a tall tale sign, like, do not listen to this with your kids.
Right.
I mean, we've cleaned up quite a bit, I'll admit. We've cleaned up. It was definitely a gap we didn't see in ourselves. But, sometimes, the warning signs get breezed over because a lot of people get overconfidence in their abilities to read signs or dodge mishaps. Hey,
sorry, we work at Diablo Aviation. My bad. We must all be terrible people.
Quite. Going off tangent about the 1-star reviews, I've actually seen some individuals who gave 1-star reviews, not because they sucked, but just because they wanted the restaurant or whoever else to read the comment, right? It was actually a glowing comment, like, oh, this place is fantastic. And they actually said that, I'm only giving a 1-star review just so you can read my comment. This is the best shit ever, blasey, blasey, blasey. All praise. I'm like, I mean, cool. I mean, I felt that. I appreciate
what an attention grab, but I feel like you the 1 star is still going to affect them negatively.
Yeah, exactly.
On Yelp,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Thanks for the kind words, but what's it? Great job, poor execution.
Right? I mean, if I reply back, can you switch it to a 5-star or something, man? like, okay, I read your comment, cool, thanks, and then you switch it to a 5 or some shit.
Yeah, or your method, your intent was admirable. Your method was questionable.
Good initiative, bad judgment.
Yeah. You could have just gave us but I wanted you to read my comment. That's fine. You could have also pulled me aside while you were in the restaurant and told me how awesome the place was and that you really appreciated it, and then gone and reported that via a 5-star review on Yelp. Like you could have just said, "Hey, and I could have actually responded to you in person. You could have seen my facial expressions and everything with how happy I would have been to hear that straight from the customer's mouth. But you chose this route. So thanks, but no thanks."
Right. I appreciate you, though. Please come again.
Yeah. Appreciate your patronage. Would love to have you back anytime.
Right. No more 1 stars, though, please.
please just leave a 5-star from here on.
Yeah. Right. Or just tip your server. Yeah. Just do that.
Yeah. Tip your server.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else to impart with on this Dunning-Kruger effect, Mr. MVP?
No. Just remember these tips of how to avoid. Why do I always do that? Why do I always do that? I always say no, and then I keep talking. What a clown. Just remember the tips we said of how to avoid this, but also, know that you're not totally 100% exempt from suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect as well. So, recognize it within yourself. Do take action to stop yourself from continuing, and being mindful of how to get others to recognize that within themselves too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's my no more comments.
I love it. And also, like, the be aware of the opposite of this, which is the imposter syndrome, right? Same steps apply. It all matters the same, right? Just because they're opposites doesn't mean the solutions aren't relatively the same. But hey, let us know what you think, right? Like, how have you experienced someone with this Dunning-Kruger effect? What some examples have you personally experienced? Do you know of some individuals who have yet to fully understand what this is, and how would you plan to help, right? Let us know in the comments. Hit us up on our social medias, our emails, our website, whichever is the easiest way for you to get a hold of us. The absolute best way to get a hold of us and to interact with us is via Patreon on our Discord channel. We have all sorts of conversations like this. We have all sorts of different channels within the Discord where we talk about different subjects, show each other cool pictures of airplanes, and just interact with each other in a way that we can best help each other. On that note, thank you all again for listening, and we will see you again on the next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com, and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, and we will catch you all next time.